Most organizations know exactly what they pay for Salesforce. They know the annual license cost. They know the implementation budget. They know what they spend on consultants, developers, support contracts, integrations, training programs, and enhancement projects. These costs are visible, measurable, and easy to discuss in leadership meetings. They appear on financial reports, procurement reviews, and budget forecasts. They have owners, approval processes, and accountability attached to them. If a Salesforce renewal increases by 15%, somebody will notice. If a project overruns by £100,000, somebody will ask questions. If a consultancy proposes a six-figure transformation program, it will be scrutinized from every angle before the decision is even made. Yet there's another category of Salesforce cost that rarely appears on budget spreadsheets and is almost never discussed with the same level of seriousness. It's the cost of behavior. More specifically, it's the cost of thousands of small behaviors that occur inside Salesforce environments every day and quietly erode the value organizations hope to achieve when they invested in the platform. These costs are harder to identify because they don't arrive as invoices. They do not require approval or trigger governance reviews. Instead, they accumulate silently through workarounds, inefficiencies, and habits that become normalized over time. To understand the scale of the problem, it's worth considering this simple thought experiment. Imagine Salesforce operated differently. Imagine that instead of charging organizations for license and storage, we charge them for behavior. Every time a user creates a duplicate customer record, an item appears on an invoice. Every time somebody exports information into Excel because they did not trust Salesforce, another charge is added. Every time an employee manually enters information that already exists somewhere else, the invoice increases again. Every time a critical business process was bypassed or ignored, another fee appears at the bottom of the page. At the end of the month, leadership receives this invoice. How much would this be? The uncomfortable truth is that for many organizations, it will be significantly larger than they would like to admit. Not because the people are incompetent or resistant to technology, but because most organizations dramatically underestimate the financial impact of poor adoption. The challenge is not that these costs do not exist. The challenge is that nobody measures them. As a result, they remain hidden beneath the surface of day-to-day operations while quietly reducing productivity, undermining decision-making, and weakening the return on investment. This tendency to ignore behavior costs reflects a much broader pattern in the business. Leaders are naturally drawn towards visible expenditure because visible expenditure is easy to understand. A software license has a price. A consultant has a day rate. A project has a budget. These figures can be tracked, reported, and challenged. Behavioral costs are different. They are fragmented across departments, teams, and individuals. No single incident appears significant enough to justify attention. A salesperson spending 5 minutes updating a spreadsheet does not appear that costly. A service agent searching for the correct customer record doesn't seem like a strategic concern. A manager questioning the accuracy of a report may be frustrating, but it hardly appears worthy of a board-level discussion. The problem, however, is that organizational waste rarely arrives in large dramatic events. It arrives in thousands of small moments. It arrives through tiny inefficiencies repeated hundreds of times per day by hundreds of employees. Each individual occurrence appears harmless. Collectively, they create a substantial drag on organizational performance. This is particularly evident in Salesforce environments because Salesforce occupies such a central position within many organizations. The platform is often expected to provide visibility into customers, opportunities, cases, forecasts, service levels, and operational performance. It's designed to become a single source of truth. When that vision is achieved, the benefits can be extraordinary. Leaders gain confidence in reporting. Team works from shared information. Processes become consistent. Decisions are made faster. Productivity improves. The challenge is that many organizations never fully realize this vision. Instead, they find themselves operating two parallel systems. The first is the official system. This is Salesforce environment documented in process maps, governance frameworks, and implementation plans. It's the version executives believe the organization uses. It contains the workflows, reports, and structures that were carefully designed during the implementation project. On paper, it appears logical, efficient, and well managed. The second system is the unofficial one. This system doesn't appear on architectural diagrams or implementation roadmaps. It exists in spreadsheets stored on desktops, notebooks carried by salespeople, email folders, messaging apps, shared documents, and countless informal workarounds developed by employees trying to get just that job done. This shadow operating model often emerges gradually, and it's rarely intentional. Most employees do not wake up in the morning determined to undermine Salesforce. They simply respond to the realities of their working environment. If information is difficult to find, they will create a spreadsheet. If reporting cannot be trusted, they maintain their own records. If processes feel cumbersome, they will develop a shortcut. Over time, these workarounds just become normalized. This is where the hidden invoice begins to grow. Consider the seemingly mundane issue of duplicate data. Few duplicates generate less excitement in leadership meetings. Data quality is often treated as an administrative concern rather than a strategic one. Yet duplicate records create consequences that reach far beyond housekeeping. When multiple versions of the same customer exist inside Salesforce, uncertainty begins to enter the organization. Sales teams become unsure which record is accurate. Service teams struggle to build a complete picture of customer interactions. Marketing campaigns target the wrong contacts. Reports become less reliable. Managers will spend increasing amounts of time validating information before acting on it. The true cost of duplicate data is therefore not the duplicate itself. The true cost lies in every activity that follows. It lies in the conversations required to clarify information, the time spent investing discrepancies, and the decisions delayed because confidence has been lost. Most importantly, it lies in the gradual erosion of trust. Trust is one of the most valuable and least discussed assets within any Salesforce environment. When users trust the platform, they rely on it. When they stop trusting it, they seek alternatives. The moment alternative systems emerges, the organization begins paying twice. It pays for Salesforce, and it pays for the effort required to maintain everything outside Salesforce. The same principle can be observed in the enduring relationship between Salesforce and Excel. For decades, organizations have invested millions in CRM platforms while simultaneously maintaining countless spreadsheets. The persistence of spreadsheets is often interpreted as a resistance to change. In reality, it's usually a symptom of something deeper. People do not maintain spreadsheets because they enjoy duplicating work. They maintain spreadsheets because those spreadsheets solve a problem that Salesforce has failed to solve. Sometimes that problem is data quality. Sometimes it's reporting. Sometimes it's user experience. Sometimes it's confidence. Whatever the cause, the spreadsheet becomes an adaptation to a perceived weakness in the official system. Now, this distinction matters because organizations frequently attempt to eliminate spreadsheets without understanding why they exist. They focus on the system rather than the cause. They create policies prohibiting spreadsheet usage, introduce stricter governance, or remind employees that Salesforce is the system of record. Yet none of these interventions address the underlying issue. If employees believe they need a spreadsheet to perform their jobs effectively, the spreadsheet will survive. Imagine, however, if every spreadsheet workaround carried a visible cost. Imagine if leadership received a monthly report detailing how many hours employees spent maintaining information outside Salesforce. Imagine if those hours were converted into financial figures and presented alongside software expenditure. The conversation would change dramatically. What currently appears to be a minor operational inconvenience would suddenly become a measurable business issue. The same is true for manual re-entry. Across countless organizations, employees spend substantial portion of their working day moving information from one place to another. Data is copied from emails into Salesforce, then exported into reports, transferred into spreadsheets, shared to presentations, and sometimes entered back into another system entirely. Each individual task appears small, yet together they consume enormous amount of productive capacity. What makes this particularly significant is that manual re-entry represents a failure of one of the technology's fundamental promises. Technology is supposed to reduce effort. It's supposed to remove repetitive work and allow people to focus on higher value activities. When employees become human integrations between systems, technology ceases to simplify work and begins creating it. The financial implications are obvious enough. productivity decreases and cost increase. Yet the cultural consequences are equally important. Employees become frustrated. Systems are perceived as obstacles rather than enablers. Confidence declines. Eventually, people stop asking how Salesforce can help them perform their jobs more effectively and start asking what they need to do to satisfy Salesforce before they can get on with their real work. Perhaps the most expensive item on our hypothetical invoice, however, would be process avoidance. Every Salesforce implementation contains processes. Lead qualification processes, opportunity management process, case handling procedures, approval workflows, and customer onboarding frameworks all exist for a reason. They're designed to create consistency. They ensure information is captured correctly. They improve visibility and reduce risk. In theory, they enable organizations to scale more effectively. Yet in practice, processes are often ignored. This is not usually because employees are unwilling to follow them. More often, it's because the process feels disconnected from reality. It may require information that appears irrelevant. It may introduce additional steps without clear value. It may have been designed around governance requirements rather than operational needs. Whatever the reason, users begin developing shortcuts. From their perspective, these shortcuts are entirely rational. They allow work to continue. They reduce friction and save time. From the organization's perspective, however, something more damaging is occurring. Visibility begins to disappear. Reporting becomes less reliable. Forecast accuracy declines. Customer experiences become inconsistent. The organization slowly drifts away from the process originally designed to support growth and control. This is why process compliance should never be viewed solely as a governance issue. It's fundamentally an economic issue. Every bypass process represents a reduction in the value the organization expects to receive from its Salesforce investment. At this point, many organizations assume that AI will provide the solution. Across the technology industry, AI is increasingly presented as the answer to productivity challenges. Smarter forecasting, automated recommendations, predictive analytics, and intelligent assistance promise to unlock new levels of efficiency. There's undoubtedly enormous potential in these capabilities. However, AI introduced an uncomfortable reality. It does not eliminate behavioral problems. It amplifies them. An AI system trained on poor quality data will produce poor quality outcomes. An intelligent assistant operating with inconsistent processes will reinforce inconsistency. Predictive models built on incomplete information cannot compensate for weak adoption. If anything, the consequences become more significant because flawed behaviors now influence increasingly sophisticated systems. This is why so many conversations about AI feel incomplete. Organizations are understandably excited about the future, but many have not fully addressed the fundamentals. They're attempting to build intelligence on top of environments where trust, consistency, and adoption remain unsolved. The result is often disappointment. The technology itself may be impressive, but its effectiveness remains constrained by the quality of the behaviors feeding it. Which brings us back to this invoice. The reason organizations rarely address these issues is not because they do not care. It's because the invoice never arrives. There is no monthly statement showing the financial impact of duplicate data. No report detailing the annual cost of spreadsheet workarounds. No dashboard calculating the value lost through bypass processes. The costs are dispersed across thousands of daily interactions and therefore remain largely invisible. Yet, invisibility should not be mistaken for insignificance. Every inaccurate report carries a cost. Every manual workaround carries a cost. Every moment spent questioning the reliability of information carries a cost. These costs may not appear on procurement reports, but they influence productivity, customer experience, and business performance just as surely as the software in license. Perhaps the most important lessons from this thought experiment is that organizations often ask the wrong question about Salesforce. The traditional question is straightforward. Are we getting value from our investment? It's a reasonable question, but it may not be the most useful one. A better question might be this: what behaviors are reducing the value of our investment? That shift in perspective changes everything. It moves the conversation away from features and functionality and towards outcomes. It encourages leaders to examine the daily realities of how people work, rather than focus exclusively on the technology itself. It recognized that Salesforce's success is not determined by what is implemented, but what employees actually do after implementation is complete. If Salesforce could send organization invoice for every workaround, duplicate record, spreadsheets, manual re-entry, or ignore processes, many leadership teams would discover something surprisingly. The platform itself is not the largest cost in the Salesforce environment. The hidden behaviors surrounding it are. And until those behaviors receive the same level of attention as licenses, projects, and technology budgets, organizations may continue searching for value in entirely the wrong places.